Mara Kessler reached the edge of the lake 3 minutes before the rest of the survey team. The planet had no recorded settlements, no roads, and no radio traffic. It had dust, stone, hard radiation, and one dark body of liquid near the site chosen for a refueling station. Mara's signature was the last thing the construction crew needed before they could lower a sampler into it. She did not sign from orbital maps. She walked down the sloping bank, stopped beside a cluster of black rocks, and looked into the water. A city was shining underneath it. Mara did not move for several seconds. Lines of amber light ran away from her like streets seen from a high balcony. Windows rose in stacked rows. Small figures crossed open squares and passed through bright doorways. The city had depth. It extended far beyond the shallow edge of the lake and seemed to descend into a distance that should not have existed. She looked up. Across the lake, there was only sand, broken stone, and a flat horizon under a copper sky. Nothing stood there to cast a reflection. No towers, no lights, no people. Yet when she looked down again, the city remained. The commander came down the bank behind her. Kessler, the sampler crew is ready. The local control station finished its self-check an hour ago. Mara raised one hand without turning. Nobody moves the sampler. The commander stopped. The technician nearly walked into him. What did you find? The commander asked. Mara pointed at the water. For a moment, neither man spoke. One of the figures below left the stream of people moving along a lit avenue. The figure crossed an open platform and came toward a place that seemed to lie directly beneath Mara's boots. It was difficult to judge size through the strange surface, but the person appeared adult, slender, and wrapped in pale clothing that caught the city's light. The person looked up, not toward the sky in general, directly at Mara. Then the person lifted both hands, palms outward. Stop! Mara glanced at the sampler arm, suspended several feet above the lake. Its narrow intake tube was still folded inside the housing. Freeze every local process, she said. No contact with the liquid. Record all optical feeds. The technician touched his wrist console. Sending hold command now. Mara crouched near the edge and lifted her right hand. The person below did not copy her. Instead, the figure pointed toward the sampler, shook their head, touched 2 fingers to their own chest, and swept one arm toward the streets behind them. It was not a reflection. It was an answer. Mara opened a field case and removed 2 survey lamps. She placed one 10 feet to her left and the other farther to her right. The first shone blue. The second shone amber. She activated the blue lamp. The person below turned toward it. A group of windows near the platform changed to blue. Mara shut it off and activated the amber lamp. The person turned the other way. A second cluster of windows answered in amber. The commander's voice dropped. They can see us. They can locate us, Mara said. That is more important. The technician stared at his instruments. The near-bank depth scan says the liquid layer is less than 3 feet deep. Mara looked at the roads beneath the surface. They ran past buildings that appeared many stories tall. The commander folded his arms. He was not dismissing what he saw, but he was already thinking about the station schedule, the supply ships that would depend on it, and the machines waiting on the ridge. We need independent confirmation before I cancel a full construction cycle, he said. I'm not asking you to cancel it yet, Mara replied. I am placing the site on survey hold. We have a responsive person beneath a liquid layer that cannot physically contain what we see. Until we know what this is, no one touches it. The commander looked once more at the person below. Hold approved. A weather notice sounded softly from the technician's console. Strong winds and blowing sand were forecast for late the following day. He dismissed it and continued sending stop commands to the equipment network. Mara barely heard the notice. Her attention remained on the city. The lake was shallow. The city had streets, towers, and people. Someone below could see the team above and was trying to protect the water between them. Mara had come to decide whether the lake could be used. Now, she needed to find out where the city was. She began with signals that could not be mistaken for language. Position, color, number. Mara moved the blue lamp along the bank. The person below had to turn, then walked several steps to keep it in view. When she covered the light, the person stopped. When she uncovered it, they pointed directly toward it. She flashed the lamp once. The windows below flashed once. She flashed it twice. The city answered twice. She flashed it 3 times. The answer came 3 times, followed by a new pattern that Mara had not sent. The person pointed again toward the sampler arm, then toward a luminous ring high above the city streets. From Mara's position, the ring seemed to lie just beneath the surface of the lake. "They are not only responding," she said. "They are adding information." The technician nodded without looking up. "Main system confirms hold. Waiting on local devices." A small warning icon appeared on his display. "One sampler node had already entered its collection cycle," he said. "I am canceling it now." Mara turned. A thin probe was unfolding from a unit 20 yards down the bank. "How long?" The local controller accepted the old instruction before the hold reached it. 3 seconds, maybe 4. The probe descended. The technician sent the cancel command again. The machine slowed, but its tip touched the lake. The person below threw both arms outward. The probe drew less than a cup of liquid before stopping. The effect was immediate. The city tilted, not the buildings themselves, Mara realized, but the image of them. Streets bent sideways. Towers stretched and shivered. A broad row of windows went dark as if a shadow had crossed them. Then bright lines rushed through the city toward the rings near its upper boundary. The person below did not flee. They pointed at the probe, then at the darkened buildings. Their gestures became sharp and urgent. "Seal the sample," Mara said. "Lock every intake. Physical isolation, not software only." The technician ran to the equipment housing. Mara watched the city slowly settle. The dark windows did not immediately return. The rings above them continued to pulse. With increased light, the commander came beside her. "A cup of liquid did that. It changed something," Mara said. "We do not know whether volume is the main issue. It could be pressure, tension, or load distribution. Can you prove that city is physically there?" "I can try without touching the surface again." The commander looked toward the equipment ridge. "You have a hold. I need enough evidence to justify canceling the extraction permit, not only delaying it." "So do I." Mara sealed the collected sample inside a shielded case. She did not analyze it first. The response below had changed the order of her questions. The important question was no longer whether the image showed a real city. It was what the liquid was doing for the people inside it. She replaced the signal lamps with instruments that would not touch the surface. A rangefinder measured the liquid layer near the bank without entering it. The result matched the first scan. It was shallow, less than a meter in the test area. Then Mara angled a low-frequency acoustic pulse across the surface and down through the layer. The first return came almost at once, marking the lower boundary of the liquid. The second return took several seconds. Mara checked the calibration and sent the pulse again from a different angle. The same delayed answer came back. The technician frowned at the display. "That is not a lake bottom." "No," Mara said. "The liquid is shallow. The empty space below it is deep." She projected a simple cross-section on the ground. A thin horizontal line represented the liquid. Beneath it, the acoustic returns formed a vast hollow. The scale expanded until the team's camp looked small beside it. The commander knelt near the projection. "A cavern. A chamber," Mara said. "Large enough for what we are seeing." She added thermal readings gathered from above the surface. Heat appeared in long straight bands and regular clusters. At first, the positions did not align with the streets visible in the lake. Mara moved her sensor along the shore, watching the bright city seem to slide in a different direction. That mismatch was not noise. It was geometry. She adjusted the model for refraction, changing the path of light as it crossed the liquid. The thermal bands and visible streets moved into alignment. The technician exhaled. "The city is down there, right under us." Mara watched one dark district begin to glow again. The same region warmed on the thermal map. "Yes," she said, "and the surface is moving the image away from its true position." She placed a bright marker close to the lake, then raised it slowly. The person below followed it with their head until the marker crossed an invisible angle. Then they lost sight of it and searched in the wrong direction. Mara lowered the marker. The person's attention snapped back to it. From her side, the same effect shifted the apparent position of the buildings. Both groups were looking through the same layer. Neither was seeing a normal reflection. The liquid carried light in both directions, bending and redirecting it on the way through. Mara looked across the dark surface and finally understood the simplest part of the mystery. The people below were not looking up through a lake. They were looking through their sky. The discovery solved one contradiction and created several more. If a city of that size had been operating beneath the desert, orbital surveys should have found heat, radio leakage, traffic, or some sign of construction. Yet every previous scan had marked the region as empty. Mara compared the thermal map with the planet's radiation data. The surface received enough hard radiation to make long-term outdoor settlement impractical. Beneath the liquid layer, however, the city's heat was faint and contained. Its signals did not rise into the open sky. Even the brightest districts appeared as small variations inside the dark shape that orbital systems had classified as a lake. The protection that allowed the city to survive was also keeping it hidden. There was no conspiracy in the missing data. The survey tools had searched for life on the surface and for strong signals escaping from below. They had not been designed to recognize a city sealed inside a chamber whose roof absorbed nearly everything it produced. Mara changed the label on her working map. She deleted lake. In its place, she wrote, roof layer. The commander read it over her shoulder. That is a large conclusion from a thin sample and some distorted light. It changes how the team thinks about the site, Mara said. If I keep calling it a lake, someone will keep treating it as liquid sitting on rock. It is not sitting on rock. It is spanning a chamber. And you believe it is part of the city's structure. The energy transfer after the sample suggests that. I still need to know how. The commander studied the model. The hold remains. Find the limit before the next operation cycle. If this is a roof, I need more than a new word for it. Mara nodded. It was a fair demand. She returned to the edge as the copper sky brightened toward local noon. The person below was waiting near the same platform. Mara had no name for them, no shared language, and no way to know whether they held any official role. What she did know was that they had warned the team before the probe touched the surface and had remained visible during the disturbance. That made them the closest thing she had to a partner. Mara set the blue and amber lamps on the ground. She added a white lamp between them. Then she placed 3 weighted markers along the bank, each far enough from the edge of the roof layer to avoid adding stress. She pointed to the blue lamp, flashed it once, and held both palms still. The windows below answered blue once. She pointed to the amber lamp, flashed twice, and moved her hand slowly downward. The city answered amber twice. The person below lowered both hands. Mara repeated the sequence until the response remained consistent. Blue became stop. Amber became continue. A slow downward motion became reduce. Other ideas took longer. To define thin, Mara held 2 markers far apart, then moved them closer. The person below first interpreted the gesture as a signal to approach. They sent a line of lights moving toward the center of the city. Mara shook her head, reset the markers, and placed a transparent survey strip between them. She widened the strip, then narrowed it. After several attempts, the person below pointed upward at the roof layer and made the same narrowing motion. They had understood. But Mara noticed something important. The person did not act on her first signal. They repeated it back and waited. Mara answered with the same pattern. Only then did the person continue. Confirmation before action. It was a useful rule for any language. Here, it might become a safety system. As the sun climbed, the radiation monitors on the bank recorded a sharp increase. At nearly the same time, the rings above the city brightened and began moving in slow waves around the chamber. Mara pointed to the sun, then to the roof, then to the rings. The person below repeated the order. They touched the roof with an open hand, swept their arm toward the city, and then crossed both forearms in front of their body. Block. Mara scanned the sealed sample. The The liquid was unlike ordinary water, but its behavior could still be described simply. Suspended structures inside it absorbed and scattered the most dangerous energy. The rings below appeared to maintain the distribution of those structures as conditions changed. The roof layer was a shield. She explained it to the commander without giving him a lecture. When the surface radiation rises, the system below works harder. The city stays stable because the layer takes the exposure for it. That explains why they went underground, he said, and why orbital sensors see so little from them. The second function was already visible in the consequences of the sample. Mara placed vibration sensors along the stone rim. The region where the probe had removed liquid still showed a slight depression, too small for the eye to see, but large enough for the instruments to detect. Energy continued to move through the rings beneath it. The person below lit a line around the entire edge of the chamber. Then they showed several brighter points where that line met structures in the rock. Anchors, Mara thought. She compared the signal with the small cavities in her geological map. The cavities formed a chain around the rim, each separated from the next by thick stone. The roof layer was not collapsing into the city because it did not behave like ordinary free-flowing liquid. It was held around the edge and continuously balanced from below, like a flexible membrane stretched over the chamber. When the probe removed material from one point, the load shifted. The city transferred power to pull the membrane back into balance. That was why the windows had gone dark. Mara sent the signal for takeaway, followed by thin and danger. The person below confirmed all three. Then they created a slow amber pulse across the roof, followed by a sudden white flash that made the surface ripple. Mara interpreted the difference. A slow change could be corrected. A sudden change could send a wave through the whole structure. She demonstrated with a flexible seal from the field kit. She pressed it down gradually and released it gradually. Then she pulled it sharply. The material snapped and vibrated. The person below sent blue. Stop. Yes. Do not do that. Mara added the second conclusion to her notes. The roof layer held the city's air and pressure inside the chamber. It was not only a shield. It was a soft ceiling under continuous control. The third function required no new experiment. It was in front of them. The same suspended structures that distributed radiation and tension also carried light through the layer. They allowed the people below to receive daylight and see the surface. They allowed Mara to see the city. But the path bent so strongly that each side misunderstood where the other was. The commander came to stand beside her as she watched the person below. A shield, a pressure barrier, and a window, he said. One system doing all three, Mara replied. And our extraction plan was going to remove it. That is what the data says. The commander looked toward the machines on the ridge. He did not argue. Show me the failure limit. Then I will cancel the permit. Mara knew the answer could not come from a destructive test. She needed the people below to show her how stress moved across the roof. She sent the signal for help, a pattern they had built from two lights converging on a third. Then she pointed to the vibration display and to the bright rings beneath the surface. The person below watched for a long moment. Then the city changed. Lines of light spread through several districts, rising from streets and windows until they formed a broad map across the chamber ceiling. Some regions glowed blue, others amber. A narrow area near the sampling point pulsed white. The person had turned the city into an instrument Mara could read. Mara moved a heavy equipment case away from the white region of the rim. The vibration there decreased. Blue lights changed to amber. She moved a second case and waited. The person below sent the signal for confirmation. Mara checked the sensors, then answered. The lights settled into the pattern they had agreed meant stable. It was the first time their exchange had produced a physical result neither side could have achieved alone. Mara understood the machinery on the surface. The person below could see the roof as a whole. From that point, the signals became less like questions and more like work. Mara sent reduce, wait, continue. The person below returned the pattern, watched the rings, and signaled when the roof stopped moving. They practiced with a locked section of the sampling system, changing pressure in an isolated line without taking any additional liquid. The first sequence worked. The second did not. Mara reduced pressure in the line she assumed carried the greatest load. The person below immediately flashed white, then blue. Stop. Mara froze the control. The vibration display showed that the small adjustment had transferred stress toward the weakened sampling region instead of away from it. The person below marked a different section with amber light. Mara adjusted that section first. The vibration dropped. She answered with a stable signal. Using the delay between each adjustment and the city's stable signal, Mara measured how quickly the roof could redistribute stress. She compared that recovery rate with the pump's stored trial schedule. Even at the lowest extraction setting, the machine would remove material faster than the roof could compensate. The lesson stayed with her. Her model could predict the surface equipment. It could not see the full condition of the roof from above. The people below were not waiting for her to save them. They held the information she lacked. Near the end of the session, the person again directed light toward the stone rim. Mara followed the signal with a ground scanner. The small cavities she had mapped were not random cracks. They descended in a stepped path, separated by thick partitions. Each chamber could be sealed from the next. Pressure locks, the technician said. Maybe, Mara replied. Or maintenance access. The route ended close to the local control station on the far side of the roof layer. The station had been placed there because the rock was stable. The city had used the same stability for its own structures. Two systems, built by two different civilizations, occupied the same section of stone without either side knowing the other existed. The signal session ended when the wind began lifting thin sheets of sand from the plain. The storm had arrived earlier than forecast. Visibility would worsen through the evening and might collapse by the next operation cycle. Mara returned to the command shelter with enough evidence to change the project. She kept her report short. The city is physical, she said. The liquid layer is its radiation shield, pressure roof, and optical window. It is anchored around the rim and actively balanced from below. Continuous extraction will remove load-bearing material faster than the city can redistribute it. The commander looked at the vibration graph, the thermal map, and the recorded exchanges. Can you prove the people below understand what our machine will do? Mara played the sequence from the sampling incident. The probe touched the layer. A district lost power. The person below identified the contact point, the dark districts, and the roof control rings. Then she showed the later coordination. Mara moved the equipment case. The person below reported the change. The sensors confirmed it. The commander issued the order. Cancel the extraction permit and erase the trial schedule. Keep the survey hold in place. The technician began transmitting. For the first time since Mara had looked into the water, the right decision seemed simple. Then the technician's face changed. The central permit is canceled, he said. The local pump controller has not acknowledged it. Send it again, the commander said. Already doing that. The trial sequence is stored at the far station. It requires local confirmation before deletion. Outside, the wind struck the shelter wall with a dry hiss. Mara looked at the site map. The far station stood on the opposite rim beside the stepped cavities beneath the rock. Why does it need local confirmation? She asked. Safety design, the technician said. If long-range communication fails, the pump follows the last verified schedule. It prevents an incomplete remote command from damaging the machinery. It was a good rule for an ordinary resource site. It was a dangerous rule here. When does the stored trial begin? Mara asked. The technician gave her the remaining time. It was enough to reach the station if the weather did not worsen too quickly. It was not enough to dismantle the pump. The commander ordered the cancellation transmitted continuously. Mara opened the pump control diagram. The system had several intake branches arranged around the test head. Closing all of them at once would stop extraction, but the resulting pressure change would surge through the lines and into the roof layer beneath them. The earlier practice with the person below had already shown that sudden changes could create a stronger wave than gradual reduction. The branches would need to be reduced in sequence. Mara studied the order recommended by the machine software. It was designed to protect the pump, not the structure below. If local confirmation fails, she said, what is the final mechanical option? The technician hesitated. An emergency drive lock. It burns the actuator and freezes the intake assembly. The pump cannot restart until the drive is replaced. Cost, he told her. The commander added what the number meant. The replacement could not be manufactured on the planet. The refueling station would lose its planned liquid source and fall behind schedule. Supply flights would need a more expensive route. You have authority to maintain the survey hold, he told Mara. Destroying the drive is beyond normal field approval. The system will open an investigation automatically and suspend my authorization. Most likely, if the site is later judged safe, you may be held responsible for the equipment and delay. Mara looked through the shelter window. The lake had become a dark, shifting shape behind blowing sand. Beneath it, the city lights were fading from view. Understood, she said. She did not call it sacrifice. She did not announce what she intended to save. She checked the route, secured a portable vibration monitor, and reviewed the pump branches again. Before leaving, she returned to the bank for one final signal test. The city was already blurred. Individual buildings had vanished behind the dust and the changing surface. Only strong bands of color remained visible. Mara sent reduce, wait, confirm, continue. The answer came back slowly but correctly. She compared the light rhythm with the vibration monitor. They matched. The person below sent the same sequence again, followed by the symbol for danger. Mara confirmed. The wind swallowed the city completely. A moment later, the communication link to the far station went silent. The pump started on schedule. Mara felt it before she heard it. A low vibration passed through the stone under her boots. The intake housing on the ridge unfolded. Far out on the roof layer, a circular patch of darkness tightened around the test head. The portable monitor jumped. Through the blowing sand, a pale band of light flared beneath the surface. Then another. The lights did not form streets now. They formed the warning pattern Mara had learned. Danger. Taking away. Fin. The trial cycle is active, the technician said through Mara's helmet speaker. His voice broke under static. Initial flow only, but it will step up automatically. Keep sending cancellation. We are. No local acknowledgement. Mara climbed into the survey crawler and drove toward the opposite rim. The route curved around the roof layer because no vehicle was permitted to cross the layer or travel close to its stressed rim. The storm erased the track as she followed it. Dust struck the windshield in hard waves. Navigation markers appeared only a few yards ahead, then vanished behind her. The commander stayed on the channel. Far station is 1.2 miles from your position. Your signal is degrading. Send the authorization packet on repeat. Already repeating. The vibration monitor rose again. Mara looked left. She could no longer see the city, but broad colors pulsed under the darkness. White, blue, white. The pattern was distorted by the moving surface, yet the rhythm remained clear. She waited for the second confirmation before answering with the crawler side lamp. Amber. Wait. Amber. The pattern below repeated. They could still hear each other, in the only way available. The crawler reached the far station as the pump entered its second flow stage. Mara stopped beside the low metal structure and ran to the access panel. The door recognized her survey credentials, but displayed a warning. The display read, Remote Command Channel Unverified. A second line followed. Local trial schedule active. She entered the cancellation code. The station replied, Request denied. Central confirmation required. The system considered itself safe. Intake pressure, motor temperature, and flow rate were all inside their programmed limits. It had no sensor for the city. It had no category for a roof made of liquid. Mara opened the manual branch controls. The pump had 4 intake lines feeding the test head. The software recommended reducing the outer line first, then moving inward. Her field model agreed. The outer line was drawing from the region closest to the visible depression. She reached for the first control. A white pulse flashed beneath the storm. Mara stopped. The person below sent blue twice, then amber from a different direction. The signal indicated another branch. Mara checked the vibration monitor. The strongest vibration did appear near the outer intake, but the wave was traveling toward a weaker section on the opposite side. Her model showed surface stress. The people below could see how the entire roof was responding. She chose the branch they indicated. Reducing intake 2 by 10%, she said, though she was no longer sure the commander could hear her. She moved the control slowly. The roof layer trembled. A line on the vibration display fell, then another rose. White flashed below. Mara held the control where it was. She waited. A long amber pulse followed, then the stable pattern. Only then did she continue. The motor changed pitch. The flow display dropped, but the automatic schedule compensated by increasing pressure in the remaining branches. Of course you did, Mara muttered to the machine. She locked the adjusted branch at its lower setting and moved toward the outer line. The person below sent blue. Mara froze again. A different color appeared farther along the roof. The signal was weak, partly swallowed by sand, but the second confirmation matched it. Reduce branch 3 first. That contradicted both the machine's sequence and Mara's first calculation. She checked the monitor. Branch 3 was not creating the largest depression, but the vibration passing from it was striking the region weakened by the sample. Mara reduced the flow through branch 3. For a few seconds, the vibration increased. The roof lights flashed white so rapidly that the storm seemed filled with distant lightning. Mara's hand tightened on the control, but she did not reverse it. The person below had sent the confirmation. She waited through the change. The vibration peak moved away from the damaged region and began to fall. Amber pulsed beneath the surface. Stable. Mara exhaled. Her model had not been wrong about the machine. It had been incomplete about the roof. Intake 2 and 3 reduced, she reported. Moving to 1. The commander's reply came in fragments. Data is coming through. Authorization is still pending. Static cut him off. Mara lowered branch 1 in small steps. Each time, she waited for the city's confirmation and checked the monitor. The person below answered from somewhere she could no longer see. Thousands of lights may have been involved, or only a few powerful signals. It did not matter. The rhythm held. Reduce. Wait. Stable. Continue. By the time she reached branch 4, the total flow had fallen to less than half the trial rate. The depression in the roof was smaller. The energy patterns below slowed. Then the local controller displayed a new message. The display warned, schedule recovery in 30 seconds. The pump was preparing to restore its program flow. Mara tried the cancellation again. The station replied, request denied. She tried the commander's authorization packet stored in her suit. The station added, packet incomplete. The storm had cut the link before the final verification block arrived. The technician's voice returned for 1 second. Mara, local drive will increase again. We cannot complete the handshake. Emergency lock status? Available. It will destroy the actuator. The commander's voice followed, faint but clear enough. Your call is being recorded. Mara looked at the roof layer. She could preserve the machine and wait for the network to recover. The pump would return to full test flow while she waited. The roof might compensate. It might not. Or she could destroy a system built for a legitimate project, delay a station that future crews would depend on, and lose the authority that had brought her to the lake. The evidence did not guarantee that every consequence would be forgiven later. It only showed what would happen if the machine continued. The recovery timer reached 20 seconds. Mara opened the emergency drive panel. Record this, she said. The extraction system is removing structural material from an inhabited pressure barrier. Continued operation presents an immediate risk to the chamber below. I am initiating a mechanical drive lock under field emergency authority. The commander answered. Recorded. Mara did not touch the control yet. A hard shutdown while the roof was still moving could send one final wave through it. She needed confirmation from below. She aimed the station's warning lamp toward the dark surface and sent the sequence they had practiced. Reduce complete. Wait. Confirm stable. For several seconds, nothing answered. The timer reached 12. Mara sent the pattern again. A white glow appeared deep beneath the dust. It moved across the roof in a broad arc. Another glow answered from the far side. The two met near the weakened region, paused, and changed to amber. Stable. A second amber pulse followed. Confirmed. The recovery timer reached 7. Mara pulled the emergency control. The drive housing let out a sharp metallic crack. A flash lit the inside of the station. The actuator temperature rose beyond its operating limit, exactly as designed, and the system drove a locking pin through its own mechanism. The pump stopped. The sudden silence was almost as powerful as the vibration had been. A final wave passed through the roof layer. Mara saw it only as a dark line moving under the storm, followed by a delayed pulse on her monitor. The monitor reading rose toward the danger mark, slowed, and began to fall. The lights beneath the roof remained bright for a long time. Then, one by one, the warning patterns changed. White became amber. Amber became blue. Stop complete. The machine displayed its last message. The display read, drive failure. Replacement required. A second notice appeared beneath it. Field authorization suspended pending review. Mara read both messages and closed the panel. The commander came through the channel as the wind began to ease. The central system has your action and the roof data. The trial is terminated. Is the city stable? Your monitor shows the large oscillation declining. Beyond that, they can see more than we can. Mara looked toward the dark surface. A slow blue pattern moved underneath it. The person below was still there. The city did not recover all at once. First, the bright rings near the chamber roof slowed. The tight pulses became wide, even waves. The depression around the intake head relaxed until the portable monitor could barely distinguish it from the rest of the surface. Then lights returned along one street. Another district followed. Windows brightened in long rows, not as a celebration, but as power became available again. The storm thinned enough for Mara to see vague towers under the roof. Their shapes straightened as the surface settled. By the time the commander and the technician reached the far station, the city was visible again. Thousands of figures stood in streets and open spaces, looking upward. No sound crossed the roof. There was no cheering Mara could hear and no speech she could understand. The city simply watched the people above, while the people above watched the city return to light. The person who had first signaled Mara stood near the same upper platform. They sent blue, amber blue, stable. Mara answered. The person pointed toward the stone rim. A line of light traveled through the city to the edge of the chamber. The ground near the local station vibrated gently. A section of dark rock split open along seams Mara had mapped as natural fractures. It was not a single door. One narrow chamber opened. After it sealed again, the next chamber opened. The path descended through the rim in stages. Air pressure changed in careful steps, never exposing the full chamber to the surface. Pressure locks, the technician whispered. Mara nodded. The people below had shown her the route during the earlier signal session. Remote sensors inside the first lock showed safe pressure, breathable air, and no immediate chemical hazard. The commander limited the first contact group to Mara and the technician. No construction crew followed. No equipment crossed the threshold. The machines on the ridge remained locked and dark. Mara entered the first chamber. The outer door closed behind her. A soft vibration moved through the floor. The inner door opened onto another chamber with warmer air. The process repeated until the final barrier withdrew. The city waited beyond it. Mara stepped onto a broad platform beneath the roof layer. For the first time, she saw the surface from below. It was not dark water over her head. It was a vast, clear sky, curved slightly by the chamber and alive with slow waves of light. Sand moved across its upper side like weather beyond glass. The commander and the remaining survey crew stood on the rim as small, distorted figures above the blue-black ceiling. Mara understood why the city had appeared to lie inside a reflection. Nothing she had seen at the opening of the survey had been false. She had simply been standing on the side of the world that made the truth look impossible. The person who had guided her through the signals approached. Up close, their clothing held fine lines of light that changed with the systems around them. Their features were unfamiliar, but their expression was readable. Caution, exhaustion, and close attention. They led Mara several steps across the platform, and pointed upward. A thin mark crossed the inner surface of the roof. It was no wider than Mara's hand, but it traced the place where the sampler had touched and disturbed the material. Mara looked past it at the streets, windows, and people beneath the enormous ceiling. The liquid her project had classified as an unused resource had been above them every moment of their lives. It had kept the radiation out. It had kept their air in. It had given them daylight and a view of the empty desert. It was their roof, their shield, and their sky. Mara raised one hand, repeating the first gesture she had made from the shore. This time, the person did not answer with warning lights or a different sign. They placed their palm lightly against hers. No translation was needed. The person lowered their hand and led Mara to a section of the platform where a simplified pattern of lights had appeared on the floor. One shape represented the chamber. Another marked the roof layer. A third showed the intake head above it. The person darkened the symbol for the intake, then brightened the ring around the roof. Mara answered with the blue signal for stop. She pointed upward toward the disabled pump, then repeated the stable pattern. The person confirmed it. Next, they illuminated the step chambers inside the rim. Mara pointed to herself, then to the pressure locks, asking whether this route had always been available. The person touched the floor, pointed toward the city, and then made the sign Mara understood as danger. They followed it with the symbol for the surface. The signal suggested that the route had not been closed out of fear of contact. Opening it without preparation could damage the same pressure system that protected the city. Mara looked up through the roof again. The survey crew appeared almost close enough to touch, yet the chamber between them was enormous. That had been the central mistake from the beginning. Distance, position, and purpose had all been disguised by the way light traveled through the layer. She pointed to the small scratch left by the sampler, then to herself. She did not know whether the gesture meant responsibility in the person's language. The person studied her, moved their hand across the light pattern, and restored the bright ring around the roof. Then they pointed to Mara, to the disabled intake, and finally to the city. They understood enough. She had helped cause the damage. She had also stopped it. Neither fact erased the other. The technician remained near the pressure lock, recording only what could be observed. He did not try to assign words or intentions beyond the signals both sides had confirmed. For the first time since landing, the human instruments were being used to document a city rather than search for reasons it could not exist. The extraction permit was canceled before the next local sunrise. The entire site was reclassified as a protected contact zone. Construction of the refueling station was suspended while planners searched for another source, one farther away and much more expensive to use. The damaged actuator remained in the pump as evidence. Mara's field approval was suspended while the review examined her decision. The commander submitted the roof data, the signal records, and the full sequence of the pump shutdown. He confirmed that the danger had been real. He could not erase the lost equipment or the delay, and Mara did not ask him to. The city did not open its doors to everyone. The pressure locks remained controlled. Communication stayed slow. Mara and the person below still shared only a small vocabulary of colors, rhythms, and gestures. It was enough to begin. Mara had arrived to decide whether a lake could be harvested. She left the shore knowing it had never been only a lake.